My guest today is Carla Escobar. Carla is a conscious chef and an integrative nutrition health coach. She also holds space using plant medicine and, as a cancer thriver herself, she supports people in their cancer journey. Carla is based in Barcelona, with roots in Peru and Colombia. In this episode, we talk about 1. Being a conscious chef and healing with food, 2. Psychedelics and holding space, and 3. Cancer journeys and supporting others. I wish this conversation with Carla Escobar brings you joy and seeds of transformation like she did with me. It's been a while and you've done quite a lot since then. Maybe we start with this. What are you studying at the moment and why is it important for you to get the theory behind the practice that you're already having?
Okay, this is a very delicate subject. It's, I will say borderline, but it's not even borderline. It falls completely sometimes into the non-legal part of what society has defined that is allowed or not. That's why it's very delicate. I started to hold these spaces for people who want to go deeper and want to explore different perception of their consciousness or their inner self, accompanied by psychedelics. It started in a very intuitive way. I have a very nourishing personality and very good at holding space. And so it just came very natural for me. But then soon I realized that there has to be a better way to do things and to get better outcomes. The purpose of really giving people the best that I can. I was randomly going to social media and then one of my friends sent me this screenshot of this master in psychedelic psychotherapy. And I'm like, wow. I was literally trying to read as much as I could to talk with all my mentors in the shamanic world to do it as best as I can. And then these masters just show up. And I was like, no, I cannot enroll in another master. No, I just finished one a year and a half ago. And then all of these things start coming and hitting hard in terms of why shouldn't I do it? The money, the time, it's not the right time. It's not the right time. So a lot of blockage, a lot of resistance against it. And then I let it be. And of course, the algorithm, it got me seeing and looking for information. So I would just see it every single day.
Remarketing.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, really not the right thing right now. Eventually, I did went to have an interview with the person who is organizing this master's. It's a private institution, of course. No university is going to back up a study program in this kind of field yet. That is coming. I did the interview. I felt comfortable, but I still have a lot of resistance until I think it was about a month and a half ago. I just woke up, I finished my meditation, and it was so clear to me that I was going to do it. And I was like, I don't know how to, but clearly the universe is pushing me towards this way. So I literally just called the guy. I told him, I'm going to sign up and I'm just going to let the universe solve the money part because I don't know where that money is going to come from. And as soon as I did, it did happen. As soon as I took the decision to study that master, I start getting a lot of gigs in the moment. More people start coming to me to be part of these spaces that I'm holding. So yeah, literally the purpose that I put into this, that it was to help in a better way the people that are coming to me are what is actually facilitating the fact that I can pay for it. Why this semester? I look for so many trainings. There are many trainings in the world, in Latin America, in the States, in UK, in the Netherlands. But there are basically trainings in terms of how to be a facilitator, how to be a sitter, how to be a guide. And deep down, I felt that's not the role that I want to perform. I'm a space holder. I just create this perfect and nurturing space for people to completely let all their guard down and completely go inwards and deal with whatever they need to deal. So they didn't feel right for me. And as soon as I read all the context and all the summary of this training, I realized that this will give me all the tools that I will need to go to the next level, to up my game and do it even better. And then is when treatment comes in, because whenever you are doing some psychedelic research, especially with psilocybin, is one of the big names that drop. We have also Will Richard, and I cannot remember all the names right now, but these people are going to be teaching us, are going to be passing on all their knowledge, even if it's acquired from the research and scientific point of view, is such an interesting part to mix with the shamanic knowledge and the shamanic intuition. As I've been saying, since I'm getting more and more deep into this world, I think all the research that has been done and all the papers on the studies are just the tip of the iceberg. And I really feel that when you go deeper into the non very explained phenomena of these kind of experiences is when you start going deeper and starting to see what is below the water.
Cool. You do so many different things, especially in the past 4 or 5 years. Your life has accelerated and you touched so many different things. You could have made a career on any of the things you touched. So, how do you tell your story and how do you present yourself here?
I've been actually working in that for the last few weeks, trying to pinpoint and choose. So I'm trying to focus. So I started as a vegan chef, and now I think I'm evolving into a conscious chef, which is like following up all the knowledge that I'm accumulating. I just keep passing it on to people. And I'm a space holder for process with people. I'm trying to refrain to put more labels because I feel the more labels I put, the more I get into a little square.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I will show my cards because before the podcast, I know you from the chef bit. I know you as a business person that kind of turned to alternative lifestyle. I know you as someone who fought and recovered from cancer and coached people. And that's one of the things I want to touch on. And yeah, I know you from about space holder, I think is one thing. I think also applying the love that you have for ingredients and nature and good food in general to mushrooms and psilocybin mushrooms. And so those are the kind of different aspects that I see of you. I don't know if I would summarize you. I would probably talk about someone who's full of energy and always trying to, or not trying to, helping people in many different modalities. I think you're someone who's workaholic. You do always way too much, or what you need to do. I don't know, but you're very high energy, but at the same time, you're always crossing the boundary between what you can and cannot do. You're always on the edge of, yeah, you're always pushing yourself. And you're very, it's easy to be comfortable around you. So I think for the space holding, it's a good thing. So those are the things that come to me when I think about you. And so you just touched on psychedelics. And because this is one of the things you were updating me on your master, but can you talk a little bit, because we are there, so let's just go deep into that topic, even that's probably one of the most controversial ones that you've done. I think the cancer bit is also quite controversial as well, because it's not only Western
Yes.
medicine, you've done plenty of things.
The way I
So
did it.
yeah, maybe we can keep this one for the end so that we do something controversial, something less controversial, and then something again controversial. But so yeah, for
Okay.
psychedelics, can you tell me how you got to psilocybin mushrooms in particular, but plant
Well,
medicine in general? And am I correct to think that your love for ingredients and the energetic or spiritual relationship that you have with ingredients, it was natural for you to go into plant medicine? It's one more ingredient, basically. It's just one that is more powerful.
it has a lot to do. It has a lot to do with it. Even though when I started plant medicine, it was 5 years ago, I started with some ayahuasca plant medicine in Colombia. Then there was a second one that I tried. It was a powerful
Which one was the second
experience.
one?
Psilocybin. I went to ayahuasca to psilocybin, and then I have to say I'm very grateful that I have already found a community of people who treated this as a medicine and not as a drug. So I got to participate in a ceremony in a forest with beautiful people, with beautiful music, with people holding space. And it was such an amazing setup. It was really wonderful. And I'm really grateful because that allowed me to have a first deep experience that was utterly transforming and that has defined the course of my life in the following years, I keep coming to that first ceremony and I keep talking about it, especially in the last 3 months, because many of the things that I went through in that first ceremony, I couldn't understand, make sense of them at the time because my level of consciousness was not that developed at the time. But I received so much information. And especially the thing that I shared the most is that day I confronted my fear of dying. And little did I know I was going to deal with a cancer diagnosis a few years later. So it was tremendously helpful. So from that moment on, I believe instantly in the power of this medicine and how transformative it can be, even if you don't fully understand in that exact moment what's that huge experience that you're going through. After that, COVID hit, and yeah, I was like, oh, I want to relive this experience. I want to get to microdose. I was microdosing before that experience, and it felt really good. And I wanted to keep exploring. I felt very cold with this medicine. And then it was really hard. So I was like, it was really hard to get any, any psilocybin during COVID. So I was like, I already have this amazing relationship with food, ingredients, and plants. So I had to grow it. It was very beautiful and natural process. I asked around, but there were very little information from close friends. So I read as much as I could. And now that I look back, yes, I did a lot of mini mistakes as a first grower, but I had a beautiful first batch of golden teachers at the time. And I realized how important is the energy that you put into them and how you grow them and how really the intentions start from the moment that you start growing them. And yeah, I started developing an even closer relationship with this medicine from the moment that I start growing it. And then I have a few more experiences with my own psilocybin that I have grown. The experience was even more beautiful, more potentiated. And even in that moment, when I was maybe sharing with some friends, this kind of experience is a beautiful setup in nature. I will take into the role of holding the space in a very natural way. Not because someone designated me, no, because someone asked me. It just came natural. And because it was the ones that I grow, it felt also I wanted to secure those experiences for the people that were with me. So it started like that.
Mm.
And that was already 3 years ago.
Wow. And what made you want to microdose?
At the beginning, I think it was curiosity. It was completely out of curiosity. I have one of those personalities that I like to try everything. I like to test on myself. I'm my own guinea pig. And I want to talk from my own experience always. I'm constantly changing my view on the world. So I really like to try different point of view on different things. And yeah, it's completely out of curiosity.
Lovely. And it made a difference in your life? Are you still microdosing now, or you just did it as an
No,
experiment?
I microdosed for a long time. I microdosed for 2 months before going into this first ceremony. I wanted to start developing a relationship with psilocybin before going into a ceremony with a higher dose. And also I feel like having a little bit of fear of what it could do. So with the microdosing, that fear really came down. And I got to learn a little bit more about how it affects my perception and my level of awareness during the day that I was microdosing. So it was a really nice experience to do it. And then after I did this first ceremony with psilocybin, I waited a little bit. And then, of course, when I got my own psilocybin, I started microdosing again. It was not very easy because at the time I didn't have all the tools to be able to procure myself the exact amount of microdosing. But
Mm.
I did it intermittently. But right now I'm not microdosing because what I tell people, it's ideal not to have a high dose while you're microdosing. And since I'm holding space 2 or 3 times a month, so it's not ideal to microdose in between.
Gotcha. And when you hold space, you take part into the plant medicine ingestion, or you just facilitate and you don't get involved?
So this is where it's not that I disagree. I understand why the researchers and all the scientific community in the certain setting that they recommend to people, the facilitators doesn't have to be with medicine. But from the shamanic point of view, the facilitators always have to meditate. So of course I had to do my own thing. I want to
Gotcha.
be sure that I'm completely conscious and I'm completely able to take care of that person and to react and to be there for that person in any way that they may need me. So I adjusted my dosage. So I'm connected energetically. So I'm also taking a dose that a minor one compared to the person, but that allows me to be aware, allows me to be alert, allows me to be taking care of the space, but I'm also deeply connected with that person. And that's where the deeper work happens. And that's one of the main parts of the experience for the people that take part in these spaces that I create. The deeply connection that they don't feel alone going through that. They feel supported through that connection. I feel them and I can make adjustments in the music that it's such a unique conductor of the experience. And I can interact with them or not interact with them dependent on how I can feel them. And my way to be able to connect with them is through the medicine.
So it's interesting. There's a part of it. Initially, when you spoke about also taking some psilocybin, the first thing that came to me was the spiritual journey that the person goes into, and there's energy, there's everything. It's being on the boat on the river to the other world, right? And you don't let the other
Yes.
person jump on the boat alone. You just go on the boat with them. That's the first thing that came to me. And the second thing is that feeling bit. So not speaking about anything from another realm, but just in this particular physical space that you're holding with the, I don't know, the furnitures, the visuals, the light, and the music. You spoke about the music. Is you can empathize with the person and understand the impact of those different parameters because you're on the same journey. So not even going deep into the spiritual realm, you can understand that if you take the same substance, you will see things in the same way or hear or feel things in the same way. And so you will make the experience so much easier. Those are the two things that come to me. So I understand.
Um, so in terms of seeing or feeling, the dosage that I will say that I take 1/3 of what the person takes. So I'm in a very lower dosage. But yeah, I think it's all about the empathy. You just mentioned that. And is the fact that I'm already without any kind of medicine, I'm a very empathetic person. I can feel people surrounding me. And in that state with that medicine, yes, I can feel them even more and I can procure more support. And every person needs have different paths and have different experiences and need very much different things from me. So it really helped me to tune into their very specific needs. Some people need at a moment maybe for me to hold a hand, but they're not able to speak, but I can feel it and I can just go and hold their hand or put my hand on their shoulder or come closer and start breathing so they can sync with my breath and start breathing together and come back and get them out of a very struggling moment. For some people, they're going through relieving maybe some past trauma, and the last thing that they need is someone touching them because that can trigger so much. But I can feel all of those things and I can procure that safe space from a distance too. So the more I do this, the more I am humbled by the beauty of the experience and the wisdom of these medicinal plants. I'm more convinced than ever. The more I do it, the more I go in it. People tend to ask about, have you had a bad sleep? That's a very known term in this kind of community and experiences. And I always give them this example when you prepare to babysit for a toddler, and I think you can relate with this since you have one now. You prepare. You're not going to arrive to sit for to care of that baby being super hungover or being drunk. You're going to prepare the space. You're not going to need knife on the table or resource or stuff like that. You prepare as much as you can to cure the safety of that person that is under your care. And of course, there's probability that something happened. Of course, things can always happen, but I believe that you can really mitigate all of those risks by really preparing and putting your soul and really making the best out of that. So I regret to people I haven't encountered yet any bad trip. It doesn't mean they're easy. They are often one of the most powerful, intense, and hard experiences that people are having in their life. And they are life changing in most of the people that I've been sitting with. But then when they overcome these hardships and they go into the other side, it's a blissful experience and a blissful part of a new chapter, I would say.
What came to me was the isolation of your practice. We spoke about controversy, and you spoke about the fact that the master you're taking is an institute, not a university, because it's not accepted yet. It's already pushing the envelope to do this in a clinical setting, and it's already quite controversial. But what you do is even further, because everything you talk about, it's way beyond what is accepted today. Today, there's an opening, but the opening is in the medical community or in the scientist community. It's not going in the direction that you're providing. The direction that you're providing is closer to cultural practices and spiritual practices that are closer to not religion, but the spirit, versus what is becoming more established, which is a scientific research to see whether or not we should treat this plant medicine as better drugs. So how do you feel about this?
Okay. So it's perfect the fact that we postponed this catch up that we're doing from last week to now, because in the middle, I went very deep into all the research that has been done until now, that is currently being done. And of course, it's very hard to put all of these experiences in a little square, but the scientific community needs to do that because they need to repeat the experiments and they need to try to control all the variables of something that's hardly controllable. At the beginning, it was horrible. It was in a hospital bed. The doctors were wearing these white robes. It's very scary. I cannot even imagine being in that setup. And sometimes the experiments, like these experiences, were conducted in psychiatric hospitals with psychotic patients around. So I could only imagine how traumatic could have that been. But they started developing the concept of set and setting. They started making it nicer in terms of light, putting some plants, maybe laying down instead of a hospital bed, a couch or a comfy bed, and then having someone to accompany that person besides the doctor, so a nurse or a sitter. And they try to standardize this kind of setting to have to repeat this experience and to be able to do these studies. I was discussing, I wouldn't say arguing because I can argue this point, but I was questioning the fact the energy of the person taking care of you in that moment, even if that person doesn't take any kind of substance, it affects the journey. So they were saying, yeah, the bad trips were reduced, but changing the setting, but they don't start to comprehend how much it affects the energy of the person getting into that room and just checking in that person. If that person has anxiety in their life, if that person is worried, if that person doesn't fully understand what they're doing there, that's going to affect the journey of the person that is laying down on the bed. And that's something that they haven't gotten into yet, but I'm sure eventually is going to come. And also, it's very funny the way all the scientific community has described the kind of experiences that you can have. They talk about mystic experience. They talk about encountering the planetary consciousness. There, I don't know, the list was so wide in terms of all the things that you can experience by going into psychedelic. But it's so crazy how detached it is this from spirituality when they just name it as some effect that you can have by taking this substance. And I think, yeah, we are a few years to come to a point where they can actually explore that with a more open mindset to really experience this. But I also realized that most of the researchers, they need to be conservator at the time to publish and at the time to share their discoveries because they need to be validated by the community, by a scientific community that have already put in doubt everything that they have been doing. So yeah, it's still
That's
a
a really good
work
point.
in progress.
I think you make great points. So the one point is reduce the number of variables because you can't just test everything. So you do the easiest experiment first, and you more than anything, you won't get into spirits at the beginning. You need to prove the other things. And then another thing that you said that I think is really right as well is we will never know what those scientists actually think or feel because they cannot share their whole heart because they might be ostracized from the scientific community. So we will see whatever is politically accepted today or
Yeah.
legally accepted first and then politically and morally and whatever. But we basically get, I think we get a subset of the feelings or thoughts of the people in deep into the research. And I would not be surprised if they were aligned with what you say. but they don't want to be excluded from the research, or they don't want the research to stop as well, because there's a risk that research stops again. And it happened 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's this risk, and I think they're trying to keep things safe so that we continue the journey, and it's better to do small incremental steps than large steps. But when you hold space, do you feel safe with the legal authorities, with the risk?
So
How do you manage this?
right now, I'm an on-the-ground facilitator. That's how they call it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's not, that's why I use the word borderline at the beginning. I'm like, no, this is way farther than borderline. I don't facilitate for everybody. I don't advertise. People come to me through friends of friends. And I'm also very careful with these kind of processes because I don't believe that this is suitable for everyone. I don't think there's just one way, one path. I think we all have to find what works for us individually. But when people come to me, the first thing that I do is have a call in terms of learning a little bit the motives that person has, in terms of why do you want to go deeper? Why this medicine? I want to hear a little bit about where that person is at their life at the moment. After that, I only work with people that are already on the path of working on themselves, are going deeper, and that have already to uncover what's underneath the different levels of awareness of themselves and in their life. If the person is doing currently therapy or is doing currently a lot of practices to work on themselves, is for me, it's a confirmation that is the right step to do. And then otherwise, I also have a beautiful network of therapists, psychotherapists, coaches, etc., that I can recommend for people to get ready and prepared to take this step. Because for me, it's a very powerful step to go into a psychedelic experience with psilocybin and other substances. Really open doors that you have to be ready to cross. You have to be ready to go into the other side, because with everything that you're going to uncover, you need to do a lot of work. And it's important that people have the proper support to be taken care of afterwards. Mm. So I feel that I've been called to do this. It felt very strong last year, let's say intuition wise, not to say spiritual wise. I think it was both. I have deep and meaningful conversation with the people before jumping into this step. And basically, we have to trust each other and then to share and experience that. So right now, yes, I'm taking a big risk by doing this. But every time I finish one of these sessions and I have the integration calls with this person 1 week, I do also check-ins a month after, and so on. It just reassures me on how beautiful is this work and how needed and how perfect it is that the people that have come so far contributing to their processes, and it's worth it. So far, it's worth it to take the risk and to trust in people and to trust in what I'm doing.
Bring me back. I had a conversation with Alejandro this week
Yes.
about similar topics. And I think one of the things that came very strongly, and it's something that has been coming back in a few interviews, but I think faith is one. And
Mm.
and I was reading a quote this morning about the fact that faith is prepare, do what you can and what you can't do, but just trust me. And I think you were
Mhm.
mitigating the risks. And then for the rest, just leave it to the spirit. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's very brave for you, for him as well. He was talking about the archetype of the fighter, to
Mhm.
pour him through those hard times of beginning and fighting against the mainstream accepted narrative, but also lifestyle. I'm wondering, how do you deal with that pressure? So faith is one. Do you do anything else to manage to live a life that is not accepted or not mainstream?
Yeah, when you keep saying fight, I think I have mixed feelings with this word. I really try to not use it because for me, equally resistance. So I don't want to create more resistance in my life. Yeah, the faith, I had a solid trust in what I'm doing. And the more I'm aligned with myself, the more I'm vibrating in the high frequencies, the more I can feel I'm walking the path I'm supposed to be walking. And that's something I didn't experience before. And I think that's a very important and valid point. When you hold space for people, you need to walk the talk. You need to have your shit together. If you don't, these kind of experiences can easily derail. So I think it's very important when you are working as a space holder to really hold space for yourself too and be able to honor your needs, your processes, and your stuff, because otherwise that can come up during the spaces that you're holding for people and that can mess with their experience. So that's a point that just came now about mitigating risk too. Hold on, something came to me about the experiments that we were talking to before. In those studies that they are currently doing, they are extremely picky with the people that they accept into their studies because they cannot risk the studies going wrong because they are so scared to be shut down as they were in the 60s. So basically right now, yeah, they try to control all the variables, but they also extremely picky. They only accept extremely healthy people into those studies. They don't want no one having a collapse or dying during an experience like that. They really push it to the next level. And in terms of the word that you just say, like fighting that resistance from the society, how things should be going, I think that I'm more than fighting, adapting, and looking for to share my impressions from people that are more into this, that look at the world from this same perception, or from this kind of corner. So most of the people that I have in my inner circle that I share my time, my space with, are people that are aligned in this kind of view of the world. So it's easier for me to relate, and it's easier for me to carry on with what I'm doing when I'm not the only one. I'm not alone doing this. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been meeting and encountering even more beautiful people that are doing the therapies, doing underground work with MDMA for anxiety or PTSD. Or, yeah, I'm encountering more and more people that are into this field. And it's beautiful to exchange with them because oh my God, I'm not alone doing this work. Look, feels amazing. Let's join forces. I don't know if I replied to your question.
Yeah, you do. You do. I like the idea of not creating the resistance by fighting and finding like water, basically. Just finding wherever it's easy to go
And
and
flow.
wherever there's no resistance. Thank you for sharing those insights and how you feel about it. And did you do any of this during your cancer fight? Well, cancer was a fight, no? Do you see it as a fight?
I never use the word fight. And actually, yeah, I'm writing a book about it. And
Okay.
the title, I'm still not completely sure of it, but the thing that keeps coming to me, it's from cancer survivor to cancer thriver. I didn't fight my process. I feel that I didn't survive it. I tried through it. I flow with it. So when people say, oh, it's like give you lemons. And I'm like, you do rocket fuel. Why do you have to do lemonade? You can do way more with the things that are thrown your way. So basically, I call it my cancer journey, my cancer process, my diagnosis. I never used the word fight. I did PNL. I remember when I was very young, and some of the concept got stuck with me. So I'm really careful with the words that I use because I know they shape also my reality. I do my best to, especially in a process like that, that you need your whole being aligned into the goal that you have, that it's eventually get to a point of balance and health. I wanted to reduce as much as I could any kind of resistance. So fighting was one of the words that for me didn't resonate with the goal that I had. Or for me has a connotation of fighting. You fight back. And I'm not going to fight my body. God damn it. No, thank you, buddy, for passing on this message. I'm going to give you more love and I'm taking care of everything that is happening. And I don't need to fight you. I need to align with you. I need to respect you. I need to nourish you in order to overcome this. But I don't need to fight you. That was basically my daily conversation with my body in the mornings in front of the mirror.
Mm. Wow. So you were finally, I'm going to listen to you. That was the attitude. So I've not been listening to you. I'm going to listen to you.
Exactly. For me, any kind of disease is your body talking to you. That's the way your body talks to you. And there is a lot of, I don't know if you're familiar with biodecoding.
No, I don't know the term.
Okay. I think the scientific community call it a pseudoscience, not something recognized. It started in Germany, then it moved into France, then it came here into Spain. Here in Spain, there is a guy called Enrique Corbera, and he called it bio-neuro-emotion. It's basically that all our emotions and our energetic state, it's very linked to our physical state. There was a doctor in Germany, I can look for the name and I can pass it on later, but I don't remember exactly right now, that started discovering that many of his patients had some emotional struggle that had the same physical outcome. And then he's, wait, what? What's this happening? And then he was the one starting to create this relationship between your emotional struggle or what happened in your life to what potentially disease you may develop. And then the biodecoding started and people started going deeper into that. And I remember that was something that I was very curious to try, but I keep pushing it. And since the moment I got my diagnosis, I just contacted immediately the person that I knew who was doing that in Barcelona. And I was like, hi, I need an appointment. Tape. And she was like, yes, I'm a bit busy. And I'm like, yeah, I have cancer. And she was like, yeah, most of the people that call me have major diseases. I'm busy. And I'm like, damn it.
Oh, fuck.
I couldn't play the cancer card. Oh, damn. So I very politely asked her, tell me anytime I'm going to be there. Just tell me anytime. I'm just going to make it happen. And she could clear some space a week from that call. And she only asked me two things in that call, maybe three. She told me, okay, which kind of cancer? And I told her breast cancer. Then she's okay, left or right? And I'm like, left. And then she asked me, which hand do you use to write? My dominant hand, the right one. And then she just asked if a ductal cancer or not. And yes, the ductal cancer. So she's okay. So get ready because we're going to, during our session together, we're going to talk a lot about your relationship with your mother and your relationship with maternity. My jaw just dropped. I literally was talking with that woman for the first time in my life in a call that lasted less than 3 minutes. And she literally pinpointed the two major struggles in my life as I've been doing a lot of work in healing my relationships with myself, with my family. And those were the only two things that were causing major emotional distress in my life. So that was, I will say, the beginning of going through the real causes why my body was sending me that message. During my cancer journey, I went to see a lot of therapists. I tried different kind of practices, what they call alternative medicine or alternative therapies. Everything that became available and that resonated for me, I went on to do it. I don't know if you want to talk about the diagnosis with a little bit more structure. Do we jump onto it?
Whatever you feel like, Carla. I want to listen to you the way you want to talk about it. So whatever feels right to you. How far, so just after the cancer diagnosis, you went to this lady about biodecoding, right?
So basically, to give a little bit more of a timeline into this very fast, on July 2020, I went to the doctor because I had felt a little lump on my breast. And the radiologist at that time, he did a very fast exam on me with the ultrasound. He didn't take more than, I will say, not even 5 minutes. He was really fast on it. And I remember him saying, you're too young to have cancer. And he just dismissed completely any complimentary test or anything. And I remember me being so concerned because everybody tells you whenever you find a lump, you need to go to the hospital. You need to be really careful about it. And there's this culture now around really check early detection. So I was very compliant with that. And then this doctor just sent me home and tell me not to come up for follow-ups and not to worry and that everything is okay. 8 months later, March 2021, realized that I had a cancer that was already about to become a stage 3 out of 4. So not nice. And then it was on the 25th of March of 2021 when I received diagnosis. I talked with this woman on a Monday, and then 1 week later, I was seeing her.
Mm.
And that was the first therapy that I received to start working with my cancer journey. I mixed. Yeah.
It feels like it's a great way to start. First, you have, so did you have this mindset at the very beginning? The mindset of, I'm not fighting, I'm just receiving information. Did you right away went into that mindset or the
Yes.
mindset that yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I had the worst possible way. The medical staff need to get better at delivering news. Oh my God. They were delivered poorly. They were delivered in stages. They make me wait in a waiting room from one doctor to another without fully telling me that I had cancer. But they let some words sweep in their conversation, but they couldn't say it. So it was a very confused moment, the way they did it with me. And when finally a doctor gave me the diagnosis, they have made me wait so much. And I have heard the word oncologist before. So I was like, God damn it. So maybe they're going to just tell me that I have a few days to live. They're making so much fuss about it. I was like, really? Yeah. And they didn't want to deliver the news to me alone. I was going just for a checkup, and then they start talking about oncologists and stuff. And I'm like, wait, what? And then they refused to give me the diagnosis alone. I had to call someone to come fast to the hospital. Otherwise, they wouldn't give me the diagnosis. So in that moment, I'm like, oh my God, if they really cannot give me the news on my own, it's because it's something really bad. So I was really like, okay, what do I do if I have a few days of life? So I was already thinking of how to make the most out of it. That was
Oh my
my
God.
process, my mental process at that moment. So when the guy that I called, can you come here, please, and sit? I just need my diagnosis. And then the doctors start talking. So you have cancer. We don't know more. I remember just the question was, that's it. There's no deadline. I don't have a few days to live. And he was like, no, we need to do exams. But and I
That's
was
the
relieved. I was relieved. And the first thought that came into my mind in that moment, and I remember it so well, is thanks God this is happening now and not 5 years ago. I would have crumbled. Now I'm ready. I felt it. I felt it in my whole being. I'm ready to take on this. Of course, that night I was literally in shock. Yeah, I was 35 years old, I was 36, sorry. I just turned 36 and receiving a cancer diagnosis. They don't know shit. They don't know shit. Of course, they just found some cancer cells, but they don't know anything. So they need to do a lot of testing, but they just send you home. Yeah, we'll get in contact. We'll get in touch. So I think that in terms of mental health, there's a lot of holes in the system. They really don't know how to properly be there and support the patient. I was in shock. I was immediately in a deeply shock in terms of I had to repeat myself. I have cancer. I have cancer. Okay, it's okay. And I get my defense mechanism in that moment was just to this nervous laugh. So I was laughing about it. I'm like, oh damn, I have cancer. I remember
That's kind of on character.
I
That's
know.
you.
I know. I also, my friends were concerned because I was at the doctor and I had texted that I was there and they were, are you okay? And I was like, oh my God. And I had the brilliant, really, people don't do this idea to let them a video telling them what was going on. So, yeah, so I have cancer. It's like, it's okay. No worries. I don't know if it's going to be okay. So I was just mumbling in the video. And yeah, I got getting home telling my housemate that I had cancer. I couldn't stop laughing. She thought it was a joke. She thought I was joking. And she's, oh my God, that's so disgusting. Don't make jokes about it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I cannot stop laughing, but I do have cancer. So it started like that. But that day was shocking news. I reacted with this nervous laugh and making jokes about it. And the next day, it was a Friday, I sat and I said, okay, I'm going to allow myself to have last weekend of normality. And on Monday, I'm going to get to it. So during that weekend, I remember I just went to parties. I was invited. I just hang with my friends. I just did the normal stuff. And Monday, I sat with myself. I'm like, okay, what I'm going to do. That's when it started. That's when I called the biodecoding. I make a huge list of what do I know right now that I can apply, heal myself. I already was calling myself a healer. I was already helping people in their processes with nutrition, healing with food, trying to heal their emotional states and how it affected their body. So it just makes sense to me if I was calling myself a healer and I was helping people to heal. The first person that I needed to start with was myself.
Yeah, love it. And it could sound like doubt and attack. So let
Mhm.
me tell you, it's coming from love.
Yeah, of course.
I think one of the things that happens to me a lot is going away from my emotions and not getting in front of it and not dealing with it, and just like you bury it and then it comes out in your body at some point. This is the concept. And I have two questions for you. The one thing is, how do you know, how did you know at the time and how do you know now that it was not denial, that kind of peace that you had when you got the news, and it was actual, yeah, it was a higher level of awareness, not just burying it?
Mhm.
That's the first question. And the second question is, have you been burying your emotions for years and years, and that's why you had cancer? At least that's your reading of it, or not? And
Mhm.
those are two questions that are very important for me. After, I'm very
Okay.
interested in the way you dealt with it, but this is major. And it will come from love regarding you and regarding my own life. I have a chronic disease, something that keeps coming into my life. It's not a cancer, but it's something that is always there. And it's something that I associate with emotional burying, basically. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get first into the shorter answer, that is the denial part. Of course, the diagnosis came as a punch. Imagine someone just punch you in the stomach and all your air, you're gasping. That was the impact that it had into my emotional being. Of course, that day I was in shock. I didn't deal with it, but then I had a few sessions where I went into that emotion and I allowed myself to be heated by the news. Fuck, it's hard.
Mm.
You went into laughing, but it's a hard thing to take on. That's one part of it. And the second one is I already had my fair psilocybin experience where I overcame the fear of dying. So when you receive a cancer diagnosis and you're not afraid of dying, it's game changer. It's really
Yeah,
game
it's like having
changing.
superpowers.
It's like having superpowers. And then in top of that, you are already embarked in a development journey, in you're working on yourself, and you have the tools to change the narrative and the perception of event that has this super conditioned stigma of being so bad, so negative, so everything.
Mm.
And instead of being something super bad, I just changed my perception and started seeing it as a challenge. Now I realize that that was my defense mechanism in that time to really, okay,
Mm.
let's try this to make it work. And I've been doing a lot of healing since last December in terms of dealing with not emotional bearing the emotions. I will let them out during the whole cancer process, but I did push myself a lot. You keep saying that's part of my personality. And I felt I put this whole pressure on myself, especially in the first 2 months since the diagnosis. Everything that I was doing was in order to heal myself. I became this crazy expert. I read all the research, everything. And then I was so on track. And then, eventually I had a call with a guru in India that for random reason happened. And after that, I really chilled and I started enjoying more my journey. I don't know if I replied to the first question instead of repressing the denial. And the second part was in my case, what I was burying, it was not just buried emotion just from mm, myself. It had a lot to do with the relationship with my mother and also with what is called ancestral emotional baggage. And it came from my mother's side of the family. In biodecoding, you explore the biological codes of your body, what your body is supposed to do. And this is really funny how my grandmother had my mother when she was 18 and she had him when 19. My mother got pregnant with me at 18. She had me at 19. And then I remember being 18 and being freaked out about the fact, oh my God, this is the family curse. I don't want to get pregnant right now. What is this? And I remember in that moment putting such a negative label into maternity and rejecting it and burying it and saying, no, this is wrong. This is bad. I don't want this. This is just going to prevent me from doing everything that I wish for in life. And I remember it very clear because I had a little sister and she was 9 years old at the time. And I remember looking at her, putting my hands on her shoulders and telling her, I pass on to you the family cursed. I don't want to become a mother. Those were my exact words. And beware of the power of the words, huh? Uh,
This was real life, or this was of a dream or
this
something like
was
this?
real life. It was real life. It happened when I was
You-
18 with my little sister of
Wow.
9 year old. Yeah. Little did I
How old is
know
she now?
now she is 29 and she has a daughter that she had when
But
she
she
was 19, when she became
really?
pregnant at 18. Yes. Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes, there is such a thing as a family, this lineage trauma or behaviors, but they are also encoded in our bodies. And that's what biodecoding
Mm.
goes into. So in this session with this woman, she used conscious hypnosis. So it's not deep hypnosis, you're conscious and she takes you to different part of your life that are related with what you're working with. And then I have my family history, my mother's side. They had very hard life when the male partner had this negative energy, where the male were cheaters, were violent, were mean to them. They abandon them. They will even be violent, not only physically, but also verbally. So these are women that had been suffering and resenting men, and that had been abandoned by men and having to take care of their family on their own, that they were, as a defense mechanism, they will have a children at a very early age, 18, 19, and it will be a girl because that will get them unconditional love. And of course, it couldn't be a male because that's the male are the ones that are inflicting damage on the women. And in that moment, I just made a pact with my body of that maternity was wrong, that didn't want to pursue that. And my body was ready to perform the program that he was programmed to do. That was basically the same as my mother, the same as my grandmother, like to keep going on it because that's a family trauma that has been passing on to us. And I just suppress it. And the funny thing is, yeah, I was 18 and then the cancer came when I was 36, 18 years later. So that's a beautiful cycle to look at from that perspective.
Mm.
And a cancer, as I've been learning and the more I go into it, you just mentioned something that really resonated with me. And it's the fact that the thing that you're dealing with, even if it's not a cancer, it's a chronic, a major thing that affects your life. For me, cancer is not a chapter that I just got to close. For me, cancer opens a chapter that is ongoing for your whole life. And the day that I will let my guard down, the cancer may come back. So
Mm.
it opened processes inside of me of deep healing that I'm working on. And the more I work on them, the more I go to different levels. A cancer is like an onion. It's just not one layer. There are so many layers of trauma and buried emotions and a lot of things that became a cancer. So I had to start peeling the onion and peeling the onion. And now I keep peeling the onion and I'm getting into more and more deeper layers. The more I keep going into this process, I'm very grateful for it. I definitely call the cancer the biggest blessing in my life. And people get shocked and they don't know how to react. And some people get very uncomfortable when I say that. Very
Mm.
uncomfortable. So I don't know if that replied to the second question.
Yeah, it does. It does. So basically, that's the bio decoding thing seems to
Uh-huh.
be a great way to start the journey because
Yeah.
it connects, it's not dismissing the body and it's
Mhm.
addressing the ancestral thing and the spiritual thing, whatever you want to call it. So all the baggage
Yes.
and all the thoughts that you have are kind of holistic way of looking at it. And it gives you
Yes.
solutions for the mindset bit as well.
Exactly.
So you would recommend this for anyone who gets not just cancer, but having
Yes.
any disease.
Completely. I was having these chronic kidney infections. And I remember in my first session when we finished the main 2 hours working about the cancer, it was a very intense session with this woman. And then at the end, I'm like, since I'm here already, I wanted to ask you about these kidney infections. So I tell her very fast about the kidney infection. I had literally 3 in a year, very bad kidney infections that I will end up in the hospital for several
Mm.
days, which is not normal. And then she will tell me just a few words and they just made completely sense. And it, according also to Chinese medicine and to many other cultures, traditions, the fear, it's in our kidneys, is that organ that is very much related with fear as the same as anger with the liver. And there are different kind of emotion associated with organs. She will ask me in those moments previous to the infection if I was having intense fear about some major change in my life, some reference point being removed and me letting myself into fear. And it just clicked so much. Those 3 times I was having major changes in my life that I didn't know how to react. And I felt very much lost and I was very scared of what was going to come, the uncertainty. And I was like, wow, that really gave me a whole new level of understanding on that. And for almost 2 years, I didn't have any because I could identify when the fear was getting into me. I'm like, wait, no, I know where this is going. So I will address it before it will come
Mm.
out of hand.
How many sessions did you do of this biodecoding?
I did 2. And in those 2, I had so much information. The session was super long and very much intense. And after that, I continue with my therapist. I started therapy And then I share all of these, and we started working a lot in the events in my childhood, and that were also passed, the trauma passed on to me, to start rewriting that narrative inside of me and addressing those patterns, those pacts that I did with my body. And that's why it was so important for me to thank my body every single morning. I will look at myself in the mirror, put my hands where I had my tumors. I had 2 tumors. So I will put my hands and I will look myself in the mirror and I will say, thank you for telling me, but I'm taking care of this now. You don't need to keep pushing it. You don't need to keep sending the message. I got it. I will just have a talk with my body every morning and I love you and thank you. And it's okay. And crazy enough, the cancer, I remember before diagnosis, it had almost doubled the size in a few months. It was so big. That's what I was concerned. And I went to the doctor. Like, can you check on this thing? It's getting big in very little time. And I don't know if that's normal. And since the moment of the diagnosis, it took me 3 months to start chemotherapy because I wanted to address the causes and understand better. And I wanted to freeze my eggs too. And then, but I also was conscious that I had a very aggressive cancer, and the doctor was telling me it can become, I call it metastase. I don't know if that's the word.
When
Spread.
it goes in other places.
Yes, because I had already 2 tumors. Have already left the principal tumor, and I already have another one that could be traveling all over the body in any moment. And my doctor was very concerned about that, and he wanted to do chemo right away. And I told him, chill, because I needed to understand first the causes of my disease and to address them. I didn't just wanted to take a part of my body and get rid of the problem because I knew the problem was not that. So I really went into these 3 months of applying all the practices, going to a lot of therapy, seeing a lot of healers. By the time I was finishing my program in integrated nutrition health coach, so I applied all of my knowledge into my diet, my supplements. And for 3 months, I was checking monthly into my cancer, the size of the tumor, and it didn't grow. It stayed exactly as the day of the diagnosis for 3 months, which the doctor couldn't understand and didn't have any explanation for it. That is really great. Yep. Until after 3 months, I realized it hasn't shrinked. It was the same size, but I felt I did a big progress in terms of understanding my disease, where it was coming from, that I was taking the right steps. But I also realized that I needed to be on my A game for the cancer not to spread. My meditation practices, my nutrition, my sleep hours, everything. It was like, it became my mission, my full-time job. And I acknowledge the fact that if something will happen and emotionally I will drop from that vibration, the cancer could spread so easily. So I went into meditation for a week on my own. I went to the forest, rented a little Airbnb, and I was meditating and having a lot of conversation with myself and my higher self, and trying to make a right decision for my process, how I was going to deal with that. Chemotherapy was one of the things that I was very much scared at the beginning. I didn't feel comfortable by doing. And eventually, after that week, I came to terms with the fact that I was going to go through it, but I was going to go through it on my way, how I felt comfortable about it. And I was going to give it a try and try to mix everything that I knew so far with this part of the Western medicine.
Wow, that's powerful. So, was there a little bit of hope that the tumor would shrink in those
Oh my
three
God.
months where, so
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you were hoping to make it work without having to do any of the Western medicine, drug and radiotherapy and all these things.
Totally. I watched
Yeah.
so many material and research about spontaneous remission. And I remember I subscribed to Gaia and I did all the seminars online of Joe Dispenza and I did all his meditations. And I even he has people who had been into his advanced courses that has healing groups, and you can sign up for a healing session with them. These people are deep into, those are like wizards in terms of meditation. They have healed people at distance and they get together and they share the intention for that person. It's super hard to get an appointment with them. They're very solicited. But of course, I was like, I'm getting an appointment. And I got an appointment, I remember by end of April of May, I got an appointment with them. They did the healing on me. I was doing everything by the book, just to say, in terms of meditation, the practices, the sleeping, the supplement. My body became even more than before my temple. And still, I realized it was a big win to stop the growing. But then I was like, wow, time wise, I don't know if I have enough time to really keep doing this. Maybe if it was stage one, I could have pushed it from 3 months to 6 months.
Mm.
So I was on one side feeling my body and feeling my intuition. I was like, okay, tell me what's the way to go. And on the other side, I have my doctors telling me that my growing rate of the cancer was 45%, knowing that anything higher than 20% was extremely high. So
Mm.
they were extremely concerned. At the same time, I was like, the conditions couldn't be worse, just to say it. I decided to freeze my eggs and I did 2 rounds of stimulation. And that's like really pumping hormones into your body by having a hormonal cancer. So
Yeah,
it was like
dangerous.
a lot of dangerous things. But I think that my meditation practice and keeping in touch with my body allowed me to be all the time connected with my intuition and trusting. And then after that call with that guru, I need to share this with you. He told me 3 things that were magical for me and that really helped me in the rest of the process. I think the call happened 2 months into the process, diagnosis. And then he asked me about my process, my journey. We have a little talk. And then he shared 3 things with me. One, your cancer cannot become your life. You need to make space for that to enter your life. Yes, it's an important process, but it cannot become your life. You have a life beside cancer and you need to make it work. You need to make it part of your life. No, your work is part of your life, but it's not your life. Oh, okay. Second, I think this was the challenging part for me so far, is how do you do everything right now? Everything that I have done in those 2 months were with the only goal and objective to get cured, to be healed. And he's like, how do you really detach from the result? How do you maintain yourself positive and thinking and waiting all the time for the best outcome, but without being attached to the actual outcome? It's about enjoy the journey and not be so much focused on the destination kind of saying. And I think that was the hardest part because everything that I was doing because I wanted to get cured. And after that day, after that talk with him, I was like, no, yes, I want to get cured. Of course, I would love to. Who wouldn't? But I don't know if I'm going to get cured. So I need to get detached from that result. I'm still going to aim for that because that's my positive outcome and I want it to happen. But I'm going to enjoy every day. So after that day, I became less rigorous, let's say, in terms of my diet, my habit, and I will enjoy more. I was like, what if I'm not getting cured? And these are literally the last months of my life. And I'm living
Mm.
like a nun, being super square in my food, my this, my that. I'm like, no, there is a way to make this work by being able to enjoy it. So that was really one of the biggest lessons that cancer gave me in terms of balancing it out. Everything that you go for, you have to enjoy and be present and be here and honor everything that is going on in your life in that moment. And then the third pearl of wisdom was, you know what? Now that I've talked to you, that I've seen you smile, you're a very cheerful, grateful person, you're doing things the best that you can. So even if you die, you're accumulating so much good karma point that your next reincarnation is going to be awesome.
Yes. I love it.
And then I was like, oh my God, man. And then I was, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's totally true. Yes, of course, there are some things I will get to do in this life, in this reincarnation. But if it doesn't happen, next one, I will give it another try. And then everything, all my perspective changed in that moment. All my perspective changed in the moment. I feel also like sharing the fact that the cancer hit my ego a lot. I consider myself a very healthy person. I was doing sports. I was meditating. I will eat super extremely healthy at the time. And I remember all my friends like, fuck, if you got cancer, so we are doomed. You are the ones
Yeah,
the
good
best
point.
habit.
Good point.
And I remember being so feeling that I was already on such a level of awareness and consciousness that how is this happening to me? I remember being a little bit outraged in terms of, no, but I'm already where I'm supposed to be. And I'm already cocky kind of a spiritual ego in terms of what else is there to learn.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I really needed that kick in the ass and for my ego. And right now I just live life with the certainty that what I know is so little compared to that I want to still need. I'm going to learn. I'm going to evolve in life. And in the last 2 years, I've grown. Oh my God, they. I don't know. It's like they really put me in a space shuttle and buckle up because there's not stopping now and like growing, not stopping. It's just keeps going and it's wonderful.
I love it. I love the mindsets you're sharing. I think they are very powerful. One thing that I would say is harder for someone who listens and is not a healer
Mm.
is the fact that you used your healer identity and your healer construction, like as a professional, as a sole purpose that you have.
Yes.
As long as I've known you,
Yes.
that was always part of your identity. And I think it's a bit easier when I'm not, again, that's coming from love. And I know I'm clumsy in the words I use, but I think for you, this experience, and I think I told you early in the process when you told me about your news, one of the things I thought was that's perfect for you. You're a fighter, you're not a fighter, you don't consider one yourself as one. To me, you had enough energy to go beyond it. And I
Yes.
thought it would be very useful for you to discover this and go deep into that process. That was my belief, that
Mm.
authentic belief I had when you told me the news. And so to a certain extent, not everyone has the chance to we're all healing it ourselves, right? So we should have
Mhm.
one part of us that is conscious about this and that would help everyone. But a lot of people might be thinking, I don't consider myself a healer. I don't want to heal others, or I don't want to do this myself. So it might be difficult for people to hear you because a lot of the strengths that you got it from that identity of the healer or that archetype that is alive in you.
Okay. To address that, there's a lot of controversy here, and that's part of the beginning of the book I'm writing. And I say this book is not for everyone, and many people is going to feel offended by it. And it's the fact that you don't need to be a healer, but you need to take responsibility for your own body. And that's something that very little people are ready to hear. Yes, I went into my archetype, I consider myself a healer. What kind of fraud am I if I don't heal myself? What am I
Yeah.
doing? So I really approach it from that perspective. But the more the process advanced, the more I realized it was about two things mainly. And one is going to sound such a cliche, but it's really loving yourself. And that's, I think, the hardest part, equally hard. The second part is taking responsibility. Many people, when they are confronted with major disease or major challenges in life, doesn't need to be physical disease. It can be some other challenges, also hardships. I've seen that they have tendency to go into the victim role when things are happening to them. Oh my God. Oh, I got cancer. Oh, I don't know. My house got destroyed. You're a victim of the circumstance. You're a victim of the world. You can victimize yourself. And by victimizing, you also apply a lot of guilt into others. Or even more self-destructive one, you start feeling guilty. Oh, I should have taken more care of myself. I shouldn't been having these habits in life. And sometimes there's a combination of both, which are extremely bad, even worse for a cancer process because it just makes you vibrate in such a lower frequencies that, yeah, cancer is going to thrive into that fear, guilt, confusion, victimism. Oh my God. So for most of the people, and yeah, there's something I feel like sharing right now. My friends, my close circle, when they hear my story and they have people close to them who had been diagnosed, they ask me like, "Oh my God, would you like to share this? Oh my God, you should share this with this person." And at the beginning, I was like, "Oh my God, of course, I loved you. It would be my honor to share my process." That's what I went into this to really share and help people as much as I can. And the more I try to do it with people, I realize this is not for everybody because not everybody is ready to take ownership of their own process, of their own journey, of their own body. And then I will say 1 out of 10 people that they want me to talk with, I share my contact with them, and just one person comes back to me and is ready to listen to what I have to say. And it's hard because it really confronts you with all these mental structures that you have built and how society and the medical system is built into. You just go to the doctor and you completely give him all the responsibility of your well-being. And most of the people that I've talked that they have cancer, they don't even remember which kind of cancer. They don't even remember which kind of treatment. And even the whole process is such a blur. They just want to forget about it because they were never part of it. And you don't need to be a healer because there's no one who knows your body better than you. You are the person that has the deeper connection with your body. And I think that's something that everybody's neglecting, starting by the medical system and their own people. They just completely want to know, I just give this to the doctor and he take care of it and I don't have anything to do with it. So it's okay. And yeah, I get it's hard to come to terms to that. For me, it was hard to realize that my body, the body that I was taking so much care of, was a body that got cancer. Yeah, I was in charge of that body and under my guard, under my vigilance, this body got cancer. So deal with that. But instead of going into the guilt and the victimizing, I'm like, okay, I allowed that to happen, but I can also change the perspective and make something out of this. But yeah, it's a whole change of paradigm. So it's not an easy pill to swallow, and it's not for everyone. Definitely.
I can relate. I think it's a beautiful conversation because I didn't have cancer, but I can relate to my own problems. Everything you speak about applies to, as you said, hardships and other aspects. And the question is always, how do you live with the problems? Do you use them as stepping stones to get to the better version of yourself? Or does it get you down in patterns that are not empowering or limiting or destroy? You have a beautiful story to tell. And I hope this conversation will help maybe people listening to the depth of where you went and what you've understood. Those mindset that you have, I don't see how they can't help others. They're very empowering. I would agree. You need to embrace the pain. You need to embrace responsibility. It
Mhm.
can sound very foreign. The first time you're exposed to it, probably you don't.
Of
And then
course.
once you understand it, it's huge. I think the benefits of it are hard to understand. It's hard to understand
Mm.
that you're going to get benefit from embracing pain. You're going to get benefit from feeling what you need to feel. And
Yeah.
I think the inner child, there was a bit about you embracing your body because it was a
Yes.
child and I will take care of you. I love you. I understand. Thank you so much for telling me. This thing is probably easier to do, but the bit of you're responsible and I don't know, maybe that's a journey of giving different insights at different times as a coach of this type of event to go through. But yeah, the bits that need a lot of work, very hard to swallow and will discourage people. And I can understand that if they think they can solve it by just giving the problem to someone else,
Exactly.
it's much easier. But the problem is
Delegating.
you will not solve it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It will come up
Exactly.
somewhere else. One of the things that I'm thinking when I hear you is first, you need to speak, we need to hear your story more. Definitely
Mhm.
now, if I was going through it, I would seek you. I definitely, every time I think about someone who has cancer, I'm thinking about you and how can I connect them? But it's true that there's a massive chasm between where most people are and where you need to take them for them to benefit from your wisdom, basically. And so the question to me is, how do you create the curriculum, thinking about content from a structured way? Is how do you give them those insights in a way that they can understand them, experience them, and they are helpful and not additional stress and burden on them?
Yes.
Because you have so much to deal with and you connected a lot of the dots before getting cancer. But if you go into cancer and that's your first relationship to your body in a way that is, okay, you're telling me information and I'm responsible, all these things, if it hits you at the same time that your body is hit physically, it can go very dark. It can be too much weight on your shoulders instead of a solution.
Yes, I understand. I realized that when I started sharing one to one with people. And then when I do it, I just tell them, I'm going to share my journey, my process. I did a lot of stuff. I stayed with some of the practices that worked for me. And what I usually do is to open an invitation for them to see what can they incorporate that can resonate with them and with their current situation, with their life, with their circumstances, because we are different beings with different lives. And then not only different cancers. That's why I'm writing the book. I don't know if it's going to be a book of some steps, guides, or something that people can actually read, get inspiration from, and see if they can apply some of the stuff that it's there and see if that worked for them. That's actually what I do with people. Invited them to taking responsibility doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to take all this weight into your shoulder, but can you actually do something to help yourself in the process? Simple stuff that, for example, I talk a lot about fasting. That's as simple as it can get, really.
Yeah.
Fast before your chemotherapy. Just fast before your chemotherapy. I even share my recipe of this amazing veggie broth that I take during my fasting that doesn't get me out of fasting mode. So they can have, so that can be easy for their bodies and their minds to stand going into fasting. And I share some, let's say, practitioners on numbers so they can go and see them if they're here in Barcelona. Or I also share some meditations that from an app that they can play and that can help them get into a better mood and a different kind of vibration before going into chemotherapy. So now when I share with people, I see what resonates with that person and I share more of less of that part of my journey. And I just ask them to see what resonates with them. And then only basically it's an invitation for them to step up, to really just step up for yourself. But that's why many people are not ready to receive this because they're not ready to step up. They're just not ready to not even take responsibility. Take responsibility is the next step, but just showing up for themselves. And it's very linked to the fact of loving yourself. It's extremely linked to that. If you have, let's say, your mother or your father, or something very dear to you that has a major disease and you want to help, you're going to go way far and beyond from that person out of love. Like, you're going to do the unthinkable. You're going to just keep pushing it and keep doing it. But when it comes to yourself, we usually have a tendency to just don't show up the same way we do for others. So that's the thing when I connect with people that I invite them to do, to really show up from themselves, but from the love. And I'm very conscious in terms of even in my coaching practice or in my holding space practice, I never show up for people who are not ready to show up for themselves. That's it. I cannot do what you are not ready to do for yourself. And I cannot help you if you're not ready, at least to take the first step. And if you take the first step, I will there. I will hold your hand and I will help you take the following steps. But that first step needs to come from everyone inside.
Yeah. The question is the first step. How do you make the first step small enough so that most people can do it?
Oof. How do you take the first step? I think the first step, wow, that's a very hard question.
Yeah. But
um,
that's as a digital marketer in the past,
yeah.
that's the question. How do you make the first
I
steps easy as possible, as compelling as possible?
What comes to me in this moment with this question, it's we all are unique individuals. I believe in bio individuality in every single sense of the world. And I will just invite people to that first step should be what's your way, to discover their own way to do things and not just to follow. I think that's the first step. Step up from the same kind of wheel that you're getting going. Just step up from there and take a unique perspective from your point of view. That awareness. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a tricky one, huh? Like, wow.
Yeah. Have you How are you talking about yourself at the moment? For everything, right? The psychedelics, I understand it's underground. The s- the
Um,
chef, I saw a lot of things from you as a chef. Do you talk about the cancer kind of coaching or helping people in any platform?
since the beginning of this year, I'm creating more content, keep on writing the book. And the next step for me is to have a website when I can start sharing this content, when I can start sharing availability for me to share these in one-to-one, but also post material, videos that people can have access to. I have already contacted some places here in Barcelona when I can start doing talks and just sharing these with people that are interested in these subjects. This year is going to be the year that I put everything that I've been going through and I start organizing it and making it easier for people to access to.
You were talking about the experience at the hospital. There's always a reason why things happen. Right? And I think how difficult it was for you, the lack of proper communication of your diagnosis, the fact that they forced you to
Mhm.
get someone to come. So I can imagine the long minutes and you thinking you were going to do all these things are, I don't know how representative they are of all the hospitals in the world,
Oh
but
my God, so much.
based on my own, yeah, that's the kind of thing. So let's give the benefit of the doubt. But even if we give the benefit of the doubt, there's still a huge amount of attention to the body as a repair mechanic would look at a car and not caring about the
Mhm.
driver because the problem is in the car, not in the driver. And so
Mhm.
I think there's a massive gap. And we were talking about it in the psychedelics and the gap between the clinical setting and what you actually need in terms of empathy and people taking the steps with you in some cases. And what I'm trying to say is hospitals and doctors don't have the skills or the interest for the most part to take care of people the way you can. And I think the tools that you have and also the not only the legitimacy but the authenticity of your journey because you went through this, it's special. So I don't know how you can scale your efforts first, help people around you, and then scale your efforts so that more people can access this. Because every time I hear about cancer, it races in my mind and I start thinking, okay, fasting can help and all the different modalities, but there's no integrated or holistic way of looking at it. And I think you did this. And I would love to see you be able to tell the story in an easy way and maybe a series of videos so that people can understand your story and relate to you. And then you can always give one-to-one coaching to the people who want to actually experience the support that you give them on a personal basis. But I think these resources are missing. Have you seen anything like this from cancer thrivers or survivors online? And does it exist and I just don't know it?
There are people who say how to beat cancer, how to this, or fasting is good like this, but I haven't found a holistic perspective on it, holistic take. There are people like don't do chemotherapy. There are people, yeah, most of the people that are on the holistic kind of side, they are against the Western kind of medicine. And what I did was mixing both. And I think that's a very unique approach. But I'm really working on it. Exactly what you say. How do I scale? How do I get to more people? How do I really share my story in a way that more people can benefit from it? So far, I'm doing one to ones. I'm sharing with some people in some gatherings. I start sharing my story, and somehow I'm just surrounded by a lot of people listening at the same time. Oh my God. And they all come to me, please, you need to publish that book. I would love to share it with this person in my life. This is so inspiring. And I truly believe in the power of the experience that I went through and the way I did it. And I really believe that it can, now it's coming more like that first step that we're talking. When people receive all this information that I'm communicating, there are some little seeds that are getting into them. And then it may be different from each person. One part of my story may resonate with some people, one part may resonate with others. But it's those little clicks that people feel that will allow them to do their first step in their own way.
Yeah. Are there holistic support groups that exist already? What people need is community. If you just put people who have cancer and are going through chemo or other things, it's probably not. I don't know
Well,
what kind of information they share with each
okay.
other, but
I
Mhm.
will share with you exactly. So the first thing that I did, of course, was look for support and community. So I went on Facebook and I looked for all these groups. And it's rare cancer, breast cancer under 40. It's not that common, allegedly, according to doctors. But then I found this community, breast cancer under 40. There's a ton of people, thousands of people. I'm like, okay, I'm not alone into this. And then I discovered something very tricky in this kind of community. And this is going to sound so harsh, so I'm sorry already for it, but they feed on the pain and the struggle. That's what keep them together. Of
Mm.
course, there are places to share the stories and stuff like that. I realized the post that I did when I was maybe communicating about the struggle, about something that was going on, something that will have so much follow. But when I was communicating something good, something happy that have happened to me, or something that worked, or how fasting was helping me, I wanted to share that knowledge with these people. And oh my God, the effect that it will produce will be so bad. Either lack of interest completely, or just no, that cannot be true. Or no, you're trying to sell something into this group, or like just really completely shutting it down. But when there was a post about something really tragic, horribly happening, people were just feeding on it. And that was very hard for me to see. I was like, wait, what? What is going on? How is this possible? And that's dangerous. Also, a platform that put people together that are like sharing some kind of struggle. If there's a moderator or someone guiding them or something like that, I feel that would be great. But if you just leave the people struggling with that, it can go in the wrong direction too. There is this huge component of feeling not alone going through what you are going. And that's such a huge relief. And it feels amazing that you're not the only one going through that. And you can actually relate and talk to someone that actually experienced the same. And that is priceless, because for me, it was hard talking about cancer with people who doesn't, because there are some stuff that they don't understand. So that is major. But without proper guidance, it can spiral into the negative side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you are into alternative methods of healing, it also can, in most platforms that are around medical communities, I guess that if it's not mainstream, you would
Yeah,
probably be shut down as well. I see this
definitely.
as another risk or another drawback of the existing communities. But honestly, I don't know. So I was just thinking about community as a way for you to connect people that have this problem and give them a place where, because you hold space in a specific way, you are
Yeah.
empowering everyone in thinking better and feeling better, or better feeling what they're going through.
That's actually the next step of I started to do some brainstorm. I got in contact with a beautiful woman who is business, also marketing, etc. And we're doing some monthly check-ins where I do check-ins on her process in terms of inner processes, coaching. And then she does it with me also in the business wise. And that's how I'm working on pinpointing how we talked at the beginning, all the things that I do to bring them to three that
Yeah.
basically has to do with the conscious food events, etc., the cancer story and the coaching. And then the third part would be the process with the psychotherapy with the psychedelics. So the next step is, after I build this more properly, the community, getting to people through the community. That's a major step. And of course, great minds think alike. Doesn't surprise me that you're sharing this.
When I got my chronic disease diagnosis, for me, it was a physical process, and I was trying to find a physical process solution. So, drug
Yeah.
or I completely outsourced it to the doctors. And I basically got symptom treatment lifelong, or basically until it would disappear on its own, but no clear understanding of not the underlying process. The underlying process is understood, but the cause of the reason why this underlying process is happening. So there's no
Mhm.
understanding of it. So because there was no understanding of the cause, I decided not to uh, go with the treatment and everything. And I started to look for alternative treatments. So I went through a similar kind of exploration of
Mhm.
trying different things to see what would heal. Didn't find anything, so I'm still having this problem. I get every search is different, but the question is, how do people search for it, and how can you connect with those people at the moment they're searching for some kind of healing, and giving them the early steps so that they can go into emotional and spiritual growth, basically, and taking the body as a messenger, taking care of your inner child, all these different things that were so foreign to me a few years
Mhm.
back, and now are things that I try to do. I'm not saying I'm there, but I understand those things are important. And how do I talk with my former self in a way that the former self will understand?
What comes to me in this moment is everything that arrives into your life. And now that you're going through now, it's the perfect timing for you to receive it. 10 years ago, you wouldn't be in the right space to maybe receive all of these. Yeah, I think what you're doing with this podcast, what I'm doing with my book, we're trying to get the information out there as simple, as easy for people to access, to digest. But I guess it also depends of everyone to be in the right time and in their life to receive it. to be able to really take the highlights of it and to make it work in their life. But yeah, that's up to every person. I know we are in a consciousness shift in the world, but it will still take more time. But I do trust the fact that we are more and more, the more I'm getting into this, the more I'm attracting people into my life that are going to very similar pathways. And then that's incredibly supportive and inspiring to keep doing this because, yeah, we are flowing, but the stream is going other way. So we are completely apart from it. So, yeah, it's,
Yeah. There's always many perspectives that I try to balance. One, how do you accept just whatever it is and flow with
mhm,
what is and try to
mhm,
change the world and basically fix your own things and the rest
yeah,
will flow. And the other one is as a marketer or as a business person or as someone trying to structure things, make it
yes,
easier, make it more convenient. The question is, how do you break it down in steps that are easier for people? And this remarketing thing you experience for psychedelics course of getting exposed to the truth or some kind of message that resonates with you enough time so that the frequency ends up making you the right choice is the way I'm looking at it from a contribution point of view. How do
yes,
you keep amplifying the right signal and remove the noise or reduce the noise? And of course, people need to do it for themselves, but how do you tell it sooner in people's life and get them to go through the journey? Because even, yeah, in an individual level, it's fine that we take time. It's your own journey, but it's not only individual. We have Earth, which is going through challenges and we need to wake up. So that's the thing. And the earlier everyone wakes up for their own health and their own personal development and their own emotional intelligence, then the sooner we come together to solve the bigger problems than just our
yeah,
own self-healingness.
yeah. I hear you. And last June, I went to the jungle in Peru. I went to visit my family. And I had a huge confrontation because I've been working so much in spreading the word, doing sharing these with people, awakening people. And then I wrapped there to my source, my root, and I got immersed into this harsh reality that most of the planet lives in. And then I realize that right now we are so embarked into this process of self-discovery and the journey to wake up and transcending and evolving. But most of the planet are just concerned about having a roof and having some food. And then it was such a hard kind of awakening for me. And I remember I cried so much when I came back to Europe and I felt so privileged and living in a little bubble where my concerns of awakening and helping also privileged people that have access to this to heal. So yeah, it was really hard. I have to say it was really hard to come to terms with that. In those terms, I was clearing what was the next step for me. Okay, I want to keep helping people, but I just don't want to reduce it to the people who have the privilege to pay for my services. So that's why I said I need to share this material. I need to create a community and I need to put it out there so people can access it. And then they can start sharing it with more people. So that was the first step. And second, yeah, by positioning, I think at the end, I don't know, but I think it will take more lifetimes to see a bigger part of the planet achieving more conscious level. But I know there are more and more of us and we're spreading. We are creating critic mass. And that for me is the major role in my life right now to keep sharing, to keep spreading, to keep inspiring people because there's nothing more compelling than living up to your truth, to what you're preaching. And people really can connect to that. People really can feel it because there are many people who say, oh, you should do this is the way, this is the secret, but you really don't feel the connection with that person. There's something blocking you from really connecting and really adopting this kind of habits of what they propose you for your life. This is the way I lived my journey from my own perspective. I could never tell people, you need to do this and do that because I don't know if that's really good for them. But what I can do is share this experience of life when I find my own way to do things. And I think that's the biggest invitation for people to really start gaining consciousness. And when you start gaining consciousness, you're not conscious just about yourself. You're starting to be conscious about others, about the planet, about the environment. It starts like a little switch in your brain. But if you keep feeding that habit, that start breaking other patterns. And yes, it became very philosophical at a point.
Yeah, I see what you say. If we solve our own problems, the rest flows. So at the end of the day, even if it sounds selfish and self-centered, it's a stepping stone for the rest. And if you can't fix yourself, you won't be able to fix the world anyway. When do you think you're going to finish the book? Are you flowing and it's coming easy, or do you think it's going to take a while?
I think it's going to take a little bit of a while. I'm trying to working on my perfectionism and pushing it a bit down. I think it's going to come more as little samples of the book in the website, so people can get a hold of them and then start creating community. And then when they have a little bit more pull with the community and the material that I have created, the content, I don't know if it's going to be a self-published, if I'm going to go in an editorial. I have little experience on that. So I'm just leaving it to the universe to provide the right people to counsel into that step. For now, I think by June, I should have already most of the structure, at least by chapters that can be samples for different kind of stuff, because I cover, oh my God, the book is, I call it the book. I just don't even know if it's going to be a book because it's already so much. But it comes from the misdiagnosis, coming to terms with the disease. I talk about the medical system, how detached is from your mental health, and how important it is to be good in your mental health to deal with the diagnosis. I talk about my value as a woman, how it affects us. I talk about the toxicity of your relationships. I also talk about all the practices that I engage in. They really link them. I give details about what I did, how I did it, how it worked for me, how it didn't work for me from my own experience, not telling people to do them. And in any case, I will share I took this amount of this thing because I don't want people to just blindly follow something that may not be good for them. But I go into, yeah, even talking about how important it is to engage into self-care during chemotherapy in terms of maybe more for women chapters in terms of what you do when you don't have a single hair in your face, when you have lashes, when you don't have eyebrows. I
Yeah.
don't know. I go to so many things there, but also there are chapters that are more general in terms, yeah, the perspective that you deal with things and the challenges that come from that.
And apart from the bio decoding, which seems to be groundbreaking, what are the top three other practices that you think had a massive impact on
Oh,
healing?
can we do five? Can we do top five?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, biodecoding was the starting point. Therapy all along the way. Therapy all along the way. There are different kind of therapies, and not every therapy works for everyone. Mine was very related to inner child therapy, and yeah, basically I call it psycho-spiritual therapy. So that was the main component. What else? I will say fasting and nutrition. Those are groundbreaking and also, let's say, very flexible and adapting, and everyone can start tiptoeing with them. They don't require going to some place or, yeah, major logistics. And then I will truly recommend acupuncture, Chinese medicine. That was incredible for me. And I did many other things, but the fifth one, and I'm naming it fifth, but I will maybe put it higher on the ranking, is the relationship that you have with yourself and others. I think that's underestimated. That's highly underestimated. If you do everything by the book, if you eat healthy, if you do acupuncture, if you take supplements, you do fasting, you do all of the things that I said before, but you are living in a toxic relationship with your partner, with your family, or even with yourself, basically everything that you're doing on the side is going to be undermined by that. So that's something that should be very much taken care of. In my personal case, I never did a chemotherapy on my own, even though I was completely perfectly capable. But I will invite friends that I will have fun with, friends that will look at me not as a sick person. Oh, poor Carla, she's going through chemotherapy. But friends like you, who since from moment one, oh, if someone's going to be able to do this, you. So people who believe in me, people who look at me just more a whole being, not just that sick person in that moment.
Mm.
And people that my body will feel the support and the love. And I truly believe, and I write that in my book, it game changing when you're receiving chemotherapy with someone that you have next to you, that you feel love, that you feel support, your body reacts differently to anything. And that was a major component to me. As one practice that I really go deeper into that.
With that, the relationship to yourself specifically, you talked at the beginning about sessions to feel. Those were your words, like time to feel. Was it something that you were doing with your therapist, or you were taking specific time to feel yourself and feel what you were, I don't know, were feeling, but to feel?
Oh, before my meditation practice was never that steady, I will say. I will engage in meditation sometimes more than others. Sometimes I will go on a strike with my meditation app, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been here in a while. For me, it was true meditation. It doesn't have to be true meditation. Everybody has their own way to connect with themselves. For me, it was either like movement meditation or meditation. So I will check in with me, how I was feeling, and really check in and not to avoiding suppressing and burning emotions and feelings, letting them out all the time. That was my way of checking in with me. And therapy was a great tool to check in with me without the bullshit, because we are the best bullshitters ever with ourselves. I'm a coach and I'm amazing holding space for people. When it comes to me, I have to say I am blindsided. I cannot see things completely, truly how they are. Those are, we call them the reality check every time I would go into therapy. So I would allow me to process things maybe in a different way, in a different perspective sometimes, with a different input that when I was doing it by myself.
You spoke about fasting and nutrition, so let's use the opportunity to talk about the vegan turning into a conscious chef, or relabeling something you've done all along. Because I remember for retreats, you were using the food as a way to connect and be here and now. Actually, we didn't go so far into your childhood. I guess the psychedelics were not there when you were young, nor was cancer. So you started to talk about the relationship with your mother and maternity. How far back do you remember being alternative, seeking this curiosity you referred to earlier, seeking new ways, all the things that define you today? How far back do you feel they were with you, and how much of it do you remember?
Crazy, I went to live with my dad when I was 10 years old. And I remember from maybe 11, 12, my dad would making me read these self-development of self-help books. And he even signed me up from some workshops when they will talk about energy and about the power of the mind, about the power of words, NLP. And I was 11 to 14 years old, and I had access to all of these. And I also remember the fact that since it came from my dad, and I was very rebellious at the time, I rejected everything. I was reading those books out of an obligation. It was part of my obligations at home to read those books. Then I left home when I was 18, 20. I came to Europe. I started, my corporate studying, working corporate, just going into life. Most of the people do. And it was not until 2016 that I did an intensive coaching program as a coachee that I really started seeing myself without that victim point of view, and just allowing my perception to grow, my awareness to grow, and to see myself of like, oh my God, so actually I'm the owner of my life and I'm the one making things happen. Whoa, what's going on here? That was a really big step in my life, 2016. And then since then, I started doing some work. And in 2018, when I started having my first experience with medicine plant, with Yahe in Colombia, and then with ayahuasca and everything, then psilocybin, then things just started, the puzzle started getting more complex and more complete too. And I think since 2020, I really embarked into this process that is growing in consciousness with everything that is coming my way, the food, the nutrition, the plant medicine, and now sharing the process that came my way.
Uh, I lost you. Are you still doing any corporate jobs? You were doing some consulting for a while. Have you maintained that practice, or have you entirely dedicated yourself to alternative ways of healing, coaching, and those activities?
Right now, I'm dedicating only to this. I
Yeah.
eventually am going to have to take a decision to really quit the corporate world. I'm still in the period of time. They gave me 2 years after my diagnosis. So I'm about to reach that stage in March. So I have to come to terms on the best way to exit the corporate world, but it really feels that I'm not going to be going back to it.
Have you thought about staying connected to companies because you have an understanding of how they work? Yeah. Have you thought about providing any kind of services to corporations?
I don't discard it, honestly. The way I'm trying to structure this and the talks that I want to share, it will be great if they can be shared among also corporate. It can start putting seeds in corporate people that the change will spread faster. I'm saying no to the corporate way, in terms of me going back into the little wheel of the corporate, being part of it. But yeah, definitely. I think this should be accessible, especially for corporate people.
At the moment, how much of your time do you dedicate to the conscious chef?
In December, I went all in and I did a lot of caterings. Also, yeah, December. So yeah, holidays and Christmas and everything. This month, I take a little step back from that to refocus, recenter. Okay, where I'm going and what I'm going to do. Which are the branches that I'm going to start working on? The conscious chef is something that I want to keep doing, definitely. But I want to do it in a more structured way that it doesn't take over. When I'm cooking, I've completely lost my way in it. I love it. And I just go all in and that the people can feel the love, the people can feel the benefit of the healthy food. And it's also raising consciousness. But I had to be conscious of the fact that in terms of what I provide to people, I need to structure a better business plan for that to be sustainable to do for me. March is around the corner and I need to be financially independent in what I'm doing. I need to also focus on the activities that can allow me to keep going in what I'm doing and that can allow me to, yeah, make a living out of it.
Gotcha. Good. Can you speak a little bit to your journey with food?
Yes.
Remember when we met, you were cooking already a lot. I don't think there was any kind of label on the food you were preparing. I think it was just delicious food. When did it become a healing tool?
Okay, so basically the beginning of my healing tool of the food started at Valentine's at you place, literally 4 years ago. You invited me to a single Valentine's at your place that you were hosting with more people, which was great because
Yes.
it was Valentine's. I was single. I was like, oh my God, what I'm going to do today. And then you called me, you invited me to that.
It was a beautiful
And I
evening. It was
remember
one of my best
it
evenings in
was
Barcelona. Really.
It was, and I also remember me arriving earlier to your place and you were cooking and I totally hijacked you in the kitchen and I took over the kitchen and I just
Better for
started
everyone.
changing your recipes and doing this and doing that. I have tendency to do that. And actually some of the guests that you have that night were the ones that eventually created this retreat group where I start cooking for. So that what I feel was the beginning of my path in the kitchen. So thank you for that, Matthew. Basically, it was during the retreat that I realized the potential and the things I could do with food, how I could transfer my energy into the food and change the energy in the food and influence people that were taking the food. I will have many of the guests coming to me, telling me that they were feeling amazing after eating my food. I have people telling me I have some intolerance, some allergies, even with this kind of product. And it looked so good that I gave it a try, knowing that I was going to feel bad. But I don't feel bad. I'm not inflamed. I'm totally okay. What's the secret? And then when it was a few people in one retreat, I was like, no, I was still having so much self doubt. No, can this be true? Is this really happening? But then second retreat, more people. Third retreat, more people. Fourth retreat, more people. Okay, I better need to start believing because this is actually happening. People keep coming to me. They are mind blown by the fact of this food can be good for them, that they actually feel so connected with them. Then I start developing the mindful eating workshops when I leaded meditation for people to start connecting with themselves through the food with different senses. And that took it to another level. The vegan part and the healthy part started because I was cooking for ayahuasca retreats. I don't know if you're familiar with the diet that you have to do for an ayahuasca retreat, where you work with this plant
No
medicine.
onion, no
So
garlic.
restrictive. It's so restrictive. No onion, no garlic, no lemon, no citrics, very little salt, very little sugar, no spices, no stimulants. People usually have the worst experiences with this kind of diet. And I managed to do the most tasty menus with these restrictions. I even had in the first retreat some people that used to work as chefs in very fancy restaurants that were blown away by the food. And I couldn't believe it. At the beginning, I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Did this really happened? Someone please pinch me." And then with the food, at the beginning, it was very intuitive. Again, I started like from the heart. And when I was leaving the kitchen, it was the kitchen of love. I will ask people to meditate before, to leave the ego out the door, to be conscious of what we were doing, it, the intention behind what we were creating. I will ask them to be conscious of the energy that they were feeling because that was in their hands and they were touching the food and they were infusing the food with that energy and people were eating that energy. And at the beginning, people were a little bit skeptical about it, but the more we were doing it, the more they will believe in actually the power of intention when preparing the food, which if you mix with prime ingredients, it just creates something deeply magical that can eventually go to people that like, example, chickpeas are like highly inflammatory for some people. And I would have people eating hummus that I cook in the kitchen and they will feel amazing afterwards. So I had many cases like that. And then I evolved with my integrative nutrition health coach program. With that, I went another, I don't know, 10 more layers into nutrition and the properties, how to combine, how to better absorb. So now all the recipes that I do, they are not only delicious, tasty, and healthy, but they're also nutritionally sound, which is going another step harder. So yeah, regarding food, it started like that. It became vegan and healthy because of the retreats and all of those restrictions. And I realized that I could actually change people's perception about healthy food, that there was like, oh, vegan or healthy food is like food for rabbits. It's just salad or it doesn't have taste. For people to say, oh my God, this may be actually one of the best meals I ever had in my life. How many people sharing that? So I was like, okay, there is something here that I can tap into and I can actually make a recipe taste better than ever by putting all of these energy concept into it. I don't know if you are familiar with the water experiment from these Japanese researchers and the crystal
Yeah, yeah.
shapes of the water. Okay, so it began energetically and intuitively, but I remember that I was exposed to this experiment when I was also a teenager, maybe 13, 14. And I did experiments with the 2 glasses, with the water rise, the thoughts, the feelings. And that's what I do with the food. That's what I'm very intuitively able to do with the food. People sometimes do Reiki and they do energy work. People, I do it with food and I can totally change the structure of the water in the food. I haven't tested chemically, but I would love to be able to do that and be able to prove that scientifically. But I know it works. It is crazy how things just taste differently. I have shared the recipes of my food with people and they follow the recipe from beginning to end, or I just supervise someone doing something and it tastes different when I touch the food. It does taste different.
Mm.
So yeah, that was a beautiful 2 years process when I had to that I discovered all of that, that I really got in touch with that part of also healer, my healing hands, what I'm doing with them. And to really believe in that, to have trust in what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Let's say that you have unlimited resources. What would you create? What would you do? Because any of the three paths, the psychedelics, the
Like,
conscious chef, and the cancer journey support, any of those three is amazing. You can obviously connect them and say, I don't need to choose, I can do all three of them. But let's say that you need to choose one of those projects. What ends up happening? Do you build a space for concert journey? Do you create an app? If you were to dream a little bit and or just accelerate the steps, where are you going?
oops, okay. So yeah, I don't feel like I I can choose one of
And you
them
can't
because
clone
I think
yourself, Carla. You can't clone yourself.
my God, Matthew, you're reading my mind. Like really, I feel like I cannot choose. 3 of them resonates so hard with me. They're really part of my soul purpose to be sharing this in different stages. In the past 4 years, then it was the conscious food, then the cancer came super hard, and now the psychedelics are super hard. So there had been stages in my life that one of them had been more important. So taking turns and allowing me to get specialized in that. And now I'm into a point, I don't want to do just one thing. And this happens to me. If I do just cooking, I miss the other too much and I want to do the others. And I get a little bit tired. December was hard in terms of cooking and I love cooking, but I cook so much that I was tired of it. And then if I do just one, let's say the holding space is exhausting. It's energetically, wow, it takes a toll on me. It's really extenuating. And the cancer journey, it is beautiful and I love it, but it's so much work. There's so much to do to actually put it out there. Right now, I'm working on the best way to make them coexist and live, knowing that my priority right now is to have a very fast way to sustain myself financially so I can keep working on these three things. And when you say limited resources for doing all of these, a really crazy idea came to me a lot last year. And it was the fact, how do I prove people that what I'm actually talking is true? And then I'm going to share this crazy idea with you. I had the idea to make a documentary, but then there are many documentaries. And then I have the idea of saying, what if someone healthy like me in this moment who has no disease or anything, I'm completely cancer clear. What if I can show that all the practices that I did can prevent chemotherapy for really damaging your body? And how my approach actually work. How do you, if you mix chemotherapy with supplements, if you prepare your body with meditation, with this, with that, if you take these supplements, how if I can prove and monitor that I can consciously now accept to have a round of chemotherapy so people can study what happens after, before and after in my body with all these practices that I have.
Right, so you would do chemo without having the cancer just to
Uh-huh.
test that.
Yes.
Okay.
That came to me. That's super crazy idea. Then I know there's a lot of liabilities. My insurance company can completely say, "Oh, you're crazy. We don't cover your insurance policy anymore." And
Yeah, but also I don't know who would inject you or who would give you the drug.
yeah,
They would.
also the medical staff that will take part into that. So there's a lot of, but for me, it was about how do I show? And I know image really. I was thinking a documentary material, and I have a lot of material from my cancer process, a
Mhm.
lot of videos and recordings and stuff. I think it will be a very powerful tool to share the story and to reach even more audience through the film, a documentary.
So that would be the unlimited resources bit.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, love it. I was writing down the three things, and it looks like conscious or being aware is the center or the key, and
Mhm.
then psychedelics is just a tool in your toolkit, just like the
Mhm.
food is another one, and then
Yes.
cancer is just an application or a problem that you can solve with this center or with these tools. So in the end, the three things are really aligned.
You write this down and pass it on to me, please.
Yeah, I will do that. I will make you a little graph.
Oh my God, I love you.
So cool. You have a lot of faith, and we spoke about the faith a lot
Yeah.
during this interview. What doubts do you hold?
I think the only doubts right now, the only reservation that comes sometimes are in terms of financial security. I think it's just financial security because I'm tapping into things that haven't been done. For example, you go to the university, you graduate as an engineer, then you work as an engineer, then you get a paycheck. And then what I'm doing is, okay, how I'm doing this, where I'm going is a lot of uncertainty. And I guess I still have these mental structures about financial security attached to that old model of life that I'm working on it right now. But that's the doubt that I'm feeling right now sometimes. And I address it when it comes and I'm healing that part so I don't have that energy coming into my life again.
Gotcha. If you visualize yourself at a crossroad, so you have two paths in front of you and you need to make a choice, what are the two paths in front of you at this point in your life?
Oh my God. Ah, you're reading minds now. What? Okay. This is something very personal. And actually, it came very strongly in that first psilocybin journey that I did when I overcame the fear of dying. I don't share this part too much because it's extremely personal, but I feel like with you. And it's the fact that I've always been having this core belief that I can either be successful in my career at the time was corporate, but now it's definitely pursuing all my purpose areas of my purpose life or having a family. I had this core belief when I couldn't do both of them. when you feel as a woman, when you decide on to having children, and especially if you decide to do it on your own, it's very hard to be able to give your 200% to what you're doing and building your business, building the community, and doing all of this that we've been talking. And at the same time, having time and dedication to be there and show up for that family. So that's been my crossroad, I think, for the past 3 years. It has been in the back of my mind. And now that I got my clearance for cancer last year, and now that I'm doing my checkups and everything is going okay, my ovaries start working again. So the motherhood, it's coming back into my awareness in this moment. And I know it's something that I want to embark eventually. And of course, biological clock is I don't have 10 years to decide on it. I will have to decide in the next 5 years. So that's the crossroad that I'm trying to take as a crossroad and more as a how can I make it happen? Both of them being successful in both and not overwhelming myself. So yeah.
Yeah, it could be just a fourth area of life. You have conscious chef, a cancer journey support, holding space, and maternity is just another one. That's a way to look at it. As a young parent, I would say that it's hard no matter what, and it's beautiful no matter what. So I think the narrative build up that you manage to create for your cancer journey, it's the same with fatherhood or motherhood. It's the same. Which mindsets and beliefs are going to pour you through? Probably the thing that looks like a crossroad is the amount of space that we have, because it's not limited space in our financial lives, in our homes, in the time we have in our relationships. And this space, at least for me, is not unlimited. I'm not a wizard yet. You do need to choose on a daily basis of where you invest your energy, and babies are unlimited. There's no limit to the amount of love and attention you can give them, and play and all these things. So you could spend the whole day for the rest of life and still have work. I wish you to find the answer to your crossword question. And maybe a last thing.
Yes.
What would you tell your 20-year-old self if with everything you live now? What would you tell yourself?
I wouldn't tell her anything. I wouldn't, because I probably wouldn't listen to myself.
Okay, let's do it this way.
At
How would you
20,
connect to that 20-year-old you in a way
at,
that she understands the insights?
at 20-year-old, I think I already felt I was a completely adult and I'm an adult and I'm like the owner of
You
my life,
figured
but I
out.
have really no idea what I was doing. There is a practice that I have on my daily life that has helped me through very hard moments during the cancer process and afterwards. And it's when I'm in moments when I'm feeling, wow, this is overwhelming. This is so hard. How do I deal with this? And I feel, well, this is a bit too much. I will go in meditation and I channel my future self and I ask her to share a little bit with me and to be with me and to hold me in that moment and to reassure me that I'm going to get through this and I'm going to get to be that version that is holding me and that's reassuring me in this moment. That's actually a practice that works peachly and that I learned in biodecoding, by the way. It's
Love it.
amazing. And to actually hold space for myself with my future self that have already went through this situation. So I probably just tell her that it's going to be okay. That you're going to fuck up big time. Once and again, you're going to fall with the same stone, but you're going to eventually learn and you're going to eventually start walking your path. I will just tell her that it's going to be okay.
It's a cool answer, actually. If she didn't seek me, why would I talk to her? What comes to my mind is more the question we were speaking about earlier, which is
Yeah.
how do you give an easy first step for that former self or whoever has not been doing all these things that she's been
Oh,
doing?
Matthew, I have everything from 11 years old. They gave me all the courses, the books, the kind of books I was reading at that age. I should have become a Buddhist or something at the time, but I refused everything. Nothing will get through my very thick wall that I have built at the time. So yeah, but I needed to go through that. And I realized that I started waking up at 31 years old and it was perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And I take away from this conversation this first step. And based on your answer, first step I come up with is instill doubt. Because we
Mm.
are always certain. We have certainty, at least at the beginning of our lives. There's a lot of certainty. Life is this way. I need to do this in order to get that. And I think the first step is surprise. How do you disconnect people from that certainty and let
Yes.
them consider other points of view and other paths?
Yes.
So
That's like,
that's the insight I'm getting from this conversation.
thank you so much. Yeah. I would definitely, yeah, that's also,
What if?
the what if is like, it's my mantra since 1st of January this year.
Love it.
Questioning everything, questioning the way I see the world, I see my reality today, and maybe tomorrow I will wake up and I will see it differently.
Love it. Hey, Carla, when you said the thing that came up to me was interest in seeing bits and pieces. You came up with this after. I don't even know if it's a book. Maybe it's just going to be
Yeah.
articles I release.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know the term intermediate packet.
No, but I love it. I'm loving how it sounds.
Yeah, it's a guy called Tiago Forte. He has a master class for people to basically organize their second brain. Helps people create databases so that you can put your projects and your insights so that you can be a writer or build your company around it. And one of the things he talks about is intermediate packets. He's speaking about it in the way that we always have big deliverables, big projects, or a book to write or a business plan. The idea is instead of working on that big deliverable, which would be the book for you,
Yes.
every time you sit and you write, so let's say
Uh-huh.
it's 1 hour or 2 hours or even 20 minutes, always build something that at the end of this work is packaged in a way that you can share it. So if it's very little time, you can do it as a tweet or as a Facebook post. If it's longer, it can be an article. And if you do the tweet, build it so that it's a micro element of the larger element. So let's say tweets become Facebook posts and Facebook posts become articles and the article becomes chapter and the chapter becomes the book. And
Wow.
it's a powerful concept. So I just wanted to tell you,
I love it.
I look forward to seeing the first intermediate packets. And yeah, I love talking with you. Thank you so much for sharing all
Thank
your insights.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much for creating this space. And it has, I have to say that I'm very grateful because it has, talking about it is such a powerful tool in terms of putting everything in this perspective in a conversation. And it has gave me a lot of insight as I was replying to your question, orientating things, listening to myself and the narrative that I have today. It's a very powerful tool that is contributing and helping a lot in the process that I am right now to putting things together and structuring the next steps. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. I loved it. And you gave me also a lot. So thank you so much.